It began with a voicemail that arrived 3 days late. "Mara, if you get this. I found it. The town from the tapes. I'll call again Thursday morning." Her brother, Luke Ellison, freelance documentarian, urban explorer, chronic pursuer of ghosts and forgotten places, sounded steady, almost relieved. Then there was a pause, a scrape of wind, and a whisper that didn't sound like him. "They remember you." The line cut. Mara replayed it 13 times that night. The timestamp said Thursday, 6:01 a.m., but Luke had vanished the same day. The police logged it as another hiker lost near mile marker 47 on the old Oak Ridge Road, the same stretch locals called the Fade. According to the reports, nothing was ever found except his car, half covered in ash and moss, though it hadn't rained in weeks. When the sheriff told her it's best to let him go, Mara stared at him like he'd spoken another language. Let Luke go? The man who never stopped chasing stories no one else dared to believe in? Instead, she traced his route. Every road, every abandoned motel he'd marked. Then finally, his last GPS ping, 46.902 degrees north, 123.774 degrees west, a blank patch of forest with no listed structures. The coordinates formed a perfect circle around one word on an old surveyor's map. Dawnhaven. A town that didn't exist anymore. Or maybe one that never had. Thursday, 5:43 a.m. Fog rolled across the highway in heavy sheets. Mara's headlights cut through a ghostly white wall, revealing nothing but pine silhouettes and the glint of wet asphalt. Luke's old notebook sat open on the passenger seat. The last page read, "If you find Dawnhaven, don't trust the daylight." Her dashboard clock blinked erratically, 5:59. 6 o'clock, then froze. And that's when she saw it. Through the mist, lights flickered, soft, amber, inviting. Street lamps. Shop fronts. A diner with a neon sign buzzing faintly, "Welcome to Dawnhaven, home is where you remember." Her GPS went dark. The radio turned itself on, whispering faint static. The air smelled faintly of rain, but the pavement was bone dry. When she stepped out, she noticed something stranger. The silence. No wind. No insects. Not even the hum of power lines. Only the faint rhythmic sound of her own heartbeat, loud in her ears. The town looked perfect, too perfect. Not a single leaf out of place. Every window glowed warmly, every storefront painted and clean, though the style was decades out of date. A bell above the diner door chimed when she entered. The sound felt wrong, slightly delayed, as if echoing through another dimension. "Coffee, sweetheart?" The waitress smiled as she filled a cup that was already half full. Her name tag read Carol, though the letters flickered faintly, as if her name was still being decided. Mara took a cautious sip. The coffee was scalding, yet she couldn't feel the heat in her fingers. "This town," she said. "It isn't on any map." Carol chuckled softly. "Maps don't always show where you've been before." Mara frowned. Before? But the woman had already turned away. The jukebox in the corner played a tune she half recognized, a lullaby her mother used to hum. The melody repeated, skipping every seventh note. Outside, she noticed something unsettling, people walking the same routes again and again. A man carried groceries past the barber shop, turned the corner, and reappeared from the opposite end a few moments later. A child tripped on the same crack twice in the same motion. At the crosswalk, every pedestrian light blinked walk simultaneously, but no cars ever passed. Every clock showed 6:14 a.m. and stayed there. Near the end of Elm Street stood a small chapel, its steeple barely rising above the fog. Candles glowed faintly through stained glass. Inside, a man stood behind the altar, holding an old Polaroid camera. Without turning, he said, "You're not from here." Mara hesitated. "You've seen my brother?" He raised the camera, snapped a photo, and handed it to her as it developed. "This place only remembers what it's already lost." The photo slowly darkened, gray, then shadow, then faces. In the image, a group stood outside the diner, smiling eerily. In the background, barely visible through a window, was Luke, mouth open mid-scream, hands pressed against glass. Her heart stuttered. "When did you take this?" He sighed. "Last Thursday. They always come back the next week." A clock told 6 times overhead, though none of the hands moved. When she looked up, the man was gone. Only his Polaroid camera remained, still warm, a new photo emerging on its own. It showed her, standing in the exact same spot, looking terrified. Mara followed the main road until the buildings began to lean, their paint older, dust thickening on windowsills. At the end of the street stood a brick building with a sign half fallen, Dawnhaven Public Library. Inside, every light flickered like a dying heartbeat. The air smelled of burned paper. She brushed off an old newspaper clinging to a table. The headline read, 37 dead in Thursday market fire, town evaluated. The photo showed the same cobblestone square, but blackened, charred beyond recognition. Each file she opened repeated the same pattern. Same tragedy, same names, same Thursday date. Different years. No survivors. In the archives, she found a box labeled visitor records. Inside, driver's licenses, receipts, and photos. Luke's ID was there. So was hers. Before she could react, a phone rang from the librarian's desk. An old rotary model, ringing slow and steady. She picked it up. The voice on the other end was faint, distant, but familiar. "Mara, it's Luke. I found it. The loop. Don't believe what you see. The town breathes us in. Static. Then, run before it resets." The line went dead. The clock on the wall blinked, 6:59 p.m. As the minute hand reached 12, the air thickened. Fog seeped into every doorway. Streetlights dimmed one by one, leaving long, black shadows that moved on their own. Mara sprinted to her car, but the engine refused to start. She tried the road out, only to find herself looping back into town square. Every turn led her past the same gas station, the same church, the same smiling strangers. At the diner window, Carol watched her pass again and again, smile widening each time. When Mara finally stopped, gasping for breath, she saw them all standing in the street, the townspeople, motionless, heads tilted toward the clock tower. It struck 7. And then, they moved. Their movements were wrong, slow, jerky, like marionettes learning how to walk. Their eyes glowed white. Carol stepped forward, blood dripping from her apron. "Closing time," she said gently. "Where's my brother?" Mara cried. Carol's head tilted. Her lips parted, and Luke's voice came out. "Still here." The crowd began to hum, low and guttural. A vibration crawled through the pavement, into Mara's bones. She stumbled backward as every light in the town went out at once. The only sound left was water, trickling softly from behind the chapel. Mara followed it, flashlight shaking. Behind the building, an old stone well yawned open, its edge covered in moss. Something glimmered far below. She leaned closer and saw faces. Dozens of them, floating beneath the surface, whispering. Their eyes open, mouths moving as one. Her brother's voice echoed up. "It resets, Mara. Every Thursday. We live the same day until someone takes our place." The reflection shifted, her own face staring back, older, hollow, the same white eyes. She screamed and pulled away, but a hand grabbed her ankle from below, cold and slick as glass. The world around her shuddered, flickering like a film reel losing power. Buildings faded. The diner light sputtered. The last thing she heard before darkness swallowed her was that same lullaby, the one from her mother's voice, now slowed and warped beyond recognition. Thursday. 6 a.m. A car rolled down the highway. A young man named Derek noticed lights through the fog. He slowed. Didn't know there was a town here, he muttered, stepping out to stretch. The fog cleared, revealing the welcome to Dawnhaven sign. The diner bell chimed. A waitress looked up, smiling warmly. "Coffee, sweetheart?" He nodded, smiling back. Behind her, Mara Ellison stood wiping a counter, her eyes pale and unblinking. She turned slightly, her voice flat and gentle. "Welcome to Dawnhaven. We're always happy to see a new face." The jukebox crackled to life again, the same warped lullaby. Outside, the fog crept inward. By midnight, Dawnhaven would be gone. By sunrise, Derek would be nothing more than another photograph in the church. And somewhere in the well, Mara's reflection smiled up at the next Thursday. They say Dawnhaven only exists one day a week. But if you ever drive past mile marker 47 and see lights through the fog, don't stop for coffee.